Welcome back to. What? Sorry.
Wow. Terrible.
All right.
Get it together.
Welcome back to Entertainment Banter. My name is Joel.
And I'm Matt.
Your stupid grin.
I can't help it. You're so. All right,
Matt,
here we
Matt,
go.
what are we talking about? Because I'm not a fan.
We're gonna talk about entertainment stuff. Yeah, we're gonna talk entertainment stuff.
Obviously, yeah, I get that.
All right, so what we're gonna talk about today is we're gonna talk about the Hollywood elite, as it were, and particularly how they have been lately treating the fan base, and also the current norms that are existing in Hollywood. I just thought it was an interesting subject to talk about because of all the stuff that's been going on. We've actually touched base with this a lot in certain podcasts, like we talked Black Panther. We were talking about, for example, the Oscars and how movies like Black Panther would never win an Oscar or Academy Award for Best Picture because it's designed for the fans. It's more of a popular film. It's not what we would call a quote-unquote artsy-fartsy film. Does that make sense? And the reason why I brought it up was because there's a lot of subjects going on around the horn lately where Hollywood is starting to become critical of its fan base. And I just thought it was so weird that this is happening, that Hollywood itself is being threatened by the fan base. So just to give you an example, and I know you love it every time I bring it up, but let's just bring up, I don't know, Star Wars. There's a lot of people that are upset with Star Wars now, meaning the fans, right? Not everybody, but some people. And so what's happened is we have social media now, like Twitter and Facebook and all these platforms that didn't exist in the past, in the 80s and 90s even. And it's just interesting now that fans can actually communicate directly to the people that are making these films and are part of these films. And so it's kind of hard not to take it personal if you're part of the film. At the same token, though, it's hard to not take it personal when someone or a franchise that you've appreciated over your course of your entire life starts bad-mouthing you. In case in point, we talked about Brie Larson and how she spoke up about, this movie's not for white males and blah, 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 blah. There's people that were against Rian Johnson and the Star Wars stuff and everything that's going on there. Kelly Marie Tran and all that crap. It's just interesting in the day and age. And I wasn't really going to talk much about this because it did cater to like a lot of Star Wars stuff. I'm trying to avoid that as much as possible because I talk about it all the time. But Martin Scorsese, a well-known director and writer, recently came out not too long ago, and he basically said that the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the superhero movies, even DC, across the board, he referred to them as theme park type movies. He didn't think they were cinema. He didn't think that they were works of art. He just described them as crappy stuff, and in a direct sort of way. And so it was interesting because a lot of people took offense to that because there's a lot of people in the world that like Marvel movies. And so it's one of those things where you just have to start to wonder, is Hollywood... That goes back to that elitist thing. If it's not a movie about something very artsy, then all of a sudden it's now a bad movie. And I'm only bringing this point up because I will defend Scorsese's points on the other side of this conversation later. But I just wanted your input because the final thing I'll say, and this does relate to Star Wars indirectly, but Freddie Prinze Jr. obviously does a voice for one of the more recent Disney animated Star Wars shows, Rebels, that had come out not too long ago, and he went on YouTube and basically told the fans to screw off, and it was because he was saying that they were man babies, the show's made for kids, and that basically, it's like he had the in, he was with Lucasfilm and Dave Filoni, and he was able to know what the Force is all about, and everybody else that thinks about it fan base wise are a bunch of fools. This is how it is, get over it kind of stuff. And it's interesting to me because yes, it's obvious that a lot of stuff is catered towards a certain. I don't expect Frozen to be marketed to elderly white males in nursing homes, right? It's probably more dedicated to children, more likely little girls, right? It's catered to that market. But what I found interesting about all of this situation that's going on is a couple of things. One is that's the whole point. You want to get people if you're in the business of entertainment and you're trying to make money, you got a product that you're selling. It's a product. You got to tell people what it is, what they should like about it, and get them interested. So if you're successful at that, meaning like people bought into what you're selling and they're buying it, why all of a sudden would you go out of your way to destroy that? Say, hey, it's not for you anymore. Because yes, like we take Star Wars for example. If you grew up in the early '80s, late '70s, you were probably a fan of Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, My Little Pony, Care Bears, whatever. Smurfs. I mean, it's like whatever you were into at that time. But the point I'm making is they attacked the younger audience with that stuff. They loved it. They grew up with it. They bought into it. But now all of a sudden it's not cool anymore. But with Freddie Prinze Jr.'s comments, what I find interesting is there's little boys and girls now watching these shows. So is his philosophy going to take effect? Like those kids that like him and his character in these shows now, is he basically just saying right now don't bother to watch my stuff because there's no point in liking it after age 12? You know what I mean? Like, so it's interesting how Hollywood's doing this, and Scorsese's knocking all the Marvel movies and the hero movies, saying it's not art, it's not cinematic universe, it's not it's not worthy of anything. And it's just funny how they're taking Hollywood on the defense about all this stuff, because it's almost like for the first time in the cinematic world, the underdog is actually getting his due. Because how long did it take? Maybe did they think like these movies are popular because we never got good Captain America movies? We never got good Batman movies. Occasionally we would get a Batman movie, but you know what I mean? Like Joker, like for example, it's kind of hypocritical because people are raving about Joker. That's a comic book movie, but because they did it in a limelight with mental illness and all this other stuff, now it's a different story. It's like, oh, okay, I guess it's artsy fartsy enough. It can be allowed. So it's a big bombshell. I can talk more about it in detail, but I just wanted your take on it. The final thing I'll say about Martin Scorsese is he's a great filmmaker and a great writer, but and I think the Guardians of the Galaxy director pointed this out too, when he was young and making films, people made fun of him and called his films crap because all he did was gangster films. Like Casino, like Goodfellas, those kinds of movies. He's always got Robert De Niro in his movies and Joe Pesci, and he's always got I forgot his name, but I already said Robert De Niro. I can't remember the other guy. But anyways, my point is he did gangster movies. Instead of Marvel doing heroes, he did gangsters, and it was always gangsters. And people said to him at the time it was a cop out. So I just wanted your take on. First of all, let's talk about. Do you think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is not cinema? Is it just crappy candy that people are eating, or do you think it actually has evolved and the older generations are just not accepting it because maybe they're bitter because no one's paying attention to their films anymore? Or do you think no, he's right, it's garbage?
You lost me at Hollywood elite.
Well, this is a very crappy podcast if that's where we're at.
Explain to the viewers real quick,
Yes.
Nick. Explain to Nick who you think a Hollywood
Our
elite.
one viewer.
Our Hollywood
I just
elite
said
is.
Martin Scorsese. I just listed a whole bunch of people.
You list those would be your definition of Hollywood elites.
Let me put it this way: when we were talking about Black Panther, and you said that are they or are they not going to win an Academy Award for Best Picture? What did we say? We said they're not going to give it to them,
going
right?
to.
Right. So what prompted you to say that? Because in my opinion, the same people that aren't going to give Black Panther a Best Picture are the same people I'm talking about when I say Hollywood elites.
Okay. Well, first off, I think the Oscars are not for us.
Hmm.
They're definitely for fellow actors and people in the industry, the elite, you would say. Your words. It's
Anyone that is in the cinematic film
right.
industry, Hollywood, that has a name, IMDb, has credits,
The
SAG,
top
whatever.
the top, like, let's
Let's
say 10% of
A-listers. Let's
A-listers,
say
sure. The
A-listers.
A-listers.
Okay.
It's for them.
Yep.
It's
And
really for them.
directors, DPs, all those.
It is for
Writers.
them to toot their own horns and to show them what artistic films they can make. That's why we always find, like, you had Robert Downey Jr. in the movie called The Judge. You had movies like
Right.
that, and everyone's trying to scramble to make an artsy fartsy film real quick to be nominated in a sense. So when we
Sure.
saw Black Panther, they only did it because it was like the movie of the year. Like, it legitimately was a movie that everyone saw. I
So
don't
are
know
you
how
saying
many.
the nominations were just a cop out?
More or less, it was just to shout out, say, "Oh, people really want this movie to be nominated." So then it was. I mean, I'm not going to say those movies don't get nominated for cinematography or CGI or scores or anything like that. I'm sure they do, but for it to be nominated for Best Picture was a huge deal, honestly.
Right. Right. And well, that's a great example, though. Why was it a huge deal? Because it's the first time any movie that's like that was nominated. Really, if you think about it, maybe Lord of the Rings, would be an exception.
But the thing is, Black Panther goes deeper. It's hard to compare it to the other Marvel movies because it had a little more.
So you're gonna hit the social norms aspect and
No,
all
no,
that
no,
crap.
no. It had a little more depth in the movie if you think about it, because both sides, the antagonist and the protagonist, were both right. That's the hard part. Like, that movie
All
had
right, all
something
right.
that they all had.
Okay,
So
but see, already you've ruined it for me because now all you're saying. I understand what you're saying, but let's be real about it. Black
Do
Panther. Let's
you?
face it. Yes, yes. All right, forget that. So you're telling me after 10 years, 20 movies, they're not going to nominate, let's say, Avengers Endgame for anything, for Best Picture,
Endgame.
whatever.
Endgame won't be nominated.
Right, but let me tell you something. Like,
It'll
for
probably be
example,
nominated for, like, other things, but not for Best Picture.
you know how Lord of the Rings, like, they would throw nods here and there for, like, best,
Costume design.
costume design,
Sure.
music score, that kind of crap.
Right.
But you know how after they know it's a trilogy, they know after it's all said and done, the last movie comes out, all of a sudden that's when it's nominated for like 12 awards, right? Like, they'll nominate it for 12 or so awards and see which one it will get. They always give it its due after the third one or after the last one's made. Like, they never really give it right away.
Sure.
So my question is, you're saying, well, you didn't really answer my first question, which was, do you think that the Marvel Cinematic Universe or DC, including Joker that just came out, are they works of art? Are they something that is cinematic? Are they theatrical works of art? Or are they just crap candy TV shows that are for the dum-dums of the world to just watch because they like them?
So, first off, facts. Today, Joker has, in the box office, is the highest profitable comic book movie ever made.
Right, but we're
Because
not talking about profits.
I'm just saying, like, it's made more money than any other comic book movie, even though Endgame probably made the least amount of money, to say to pay so much to make it. Comparing that. But with that said, some comics movies that we're watching were only made to be, cheesy back in the day. No one knew they had a market we have today for them.
Right.
I can't
okay,
say
so
that.
why-
I can't.
so why
I
is
can't.
that?
I can't say.
Why is that?
The demographic, maybe Hollywood finally started listening to its fans. I don't know.
Well, I disagree with that to a certain extent because I think you hit it on the head when you first brought it up. It's the fact that they didn't take it seriously. But then someone decided to take it seriously. And when they did that,
Look what
all
happened.
of a sudden, it's super popular. So that's what I'm trying to get at is if they took it seriously this time around, that means they put some thought and effort into it, right?
Right.
Which means that they planned it out, they came up with a story, they came up with how they were going to do things, come up with the characters, come up with the themes, the emotional storylines behind it all. So you're telling me, like, when Iron Man is sitting in his cabin with his wife and his new daughter, and he has to make a decision on whether he should give up that life and return to his old life the way it was, or just say, hey, events, let them land where they are. You're telling me in that moment, whether the guy puts on a red iron suit or not, you're telling me for that character to kind of make that decision is not meaningful or has any kind of cinematic value. Now, what I mean by that is, take Schindler's List. Spielberg's the king of it, really, if you think about half the stuff he does. Scorsese, obviously. They're all related in that capacity. But, Schindler's List, you got Saving Private Ryan, you got Jurassic Park, which is a little more of what Scorsese, I think, would probably call the amusement park kind of film. But I'm trying to think of other movies like The English Patient. These are the movies that Scorsese's talking about where they're dragged out. There's not a lot of necessary action per se. There's just a lot of thought behind it. The Wolf of Wall Street. These are the movies he's made. The Casino. Like I said, a lot of the gangster type movies. They definitely have a different feel to them than, let's say, Guardians of the Galaxy. But they're just different genres. I would look at them as different genres, and Scorsese does open up and say that's the case for some of it. But what I'm saying is, you personally, I'm just asking, it's a really simple question, because you keep bringing up the controversial hero movies, Joker and Black Panther. I'm just saying there's been 1,000 other movies that have come out, including like Deadpool and all these other. You're telling me that they're not works of art. Is that what you're saying? That Scorsese's right? They're just eye candy.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a politician. I'm dodging your question just because I don't. There's no straight answer on this. I can't give you the right answer right away because there's so many things I could talk about my wall. So,
oh my gosh!
But
stop drinking your eggnog.
I love this eggnog. I searched for it all
day.
Right. So,
by the way, you're
as an example. Let's take musical theater for a second, right? Nobody
Which
knows.
is already completely different.
It is. Technically, all musical theater is art, right?
But my point. That's why I said it's completely different.
It is. But
you're skirting the issue.
You don't know what's going to be good and what's not going to be bad, and all that. So
let me put it this way: you got SpongeBob, and then you've got Les Mis.
Can I just
talk? The reality of that is
you're not going to let me talk. You're not going to let me talk.
Go ahead, talk. Go ahead.
You done?
We got not a lot of time left. Keep going.
So you get shows like Hamilton, which is a thought-provoking piece, right?
Yeah.
Artistic, if you will. And then you get a piece like Wicked, which people would almost not say is artistic, but they would say that it's a spectacle. Uh-huh. So in a sense, that's the same sense what Scorsese's saying, these are just amusement park things. That's not a real musical, that's just a spectacle. And that's a real artistic piece. So to belittle something, I think it's almost like an insult saying that these movies are they're not artistic in any kind of way. They're just amusement park movies, because that's almost like calling it, it's just a 90-minute commercial for toys, which it really isn't.
So you disagree with Scorsese's thoughts?
Yeah, because you can't. The thing is, I disagree.
That took a really long time for you to say, dude. About 10 minutes.
I'm hanging up. I disagree and I agree.
Oh, jeez.
Just because he's not wrong, but he's also not right. Because anything can be art. Art's subjective, and to say that none of those are artistic. So the majority of the people who call for the Academy Awards to choose who put a list out, who nominate all this, they're all biased in their own light. I mean, if the guild changes, maybe in the future, maybe we'll start seeing more movies like Endgame, and maybe Spider-Man will be up for Best Movie of the Year. I mean, those movies are actually captivating the whole world instead of just only 20 people saw this movie.
Right. Well, so that's a great segue. So basically, what this is where I don't want to defend these guys, because I'll be honest with you, they've had their day in the sun since forever. You know what I'm saying? It's only been 10 years compared to a lifetime of film. You know what I'm saying? It's only been 10 years where finally superhero movies have come out,
Well, that's
and you know what I mean, like really truly come out. You
that's
know, we've
another
had
good
hit or
point.
misses there.
Scorsese may be saying that shit because he doesn't relate to the artistic feel of it like a lot of us do. There's a bunch of people that relate more to what they're seeing on TV now or on the silver screen than he does. He doesn't relate to it because it's not artistic in his manner, but it's
Or his
artistic
generation, not
or
to
his
knock his
generation.
generation.
Because yeah, okay, so he's the type that would hang a picture on the wall. It's like a glob of white paint. And you're like, oh, that's art, right? But then you have these people who are buying like Iron Man helmets that are like
Right.
$1,000 pieces, and they put it on their wall, and that's art to them.
Exactly. And here's the thing, and it's annoying as it can be, but it's like I don't know how to describe it. It's very snobby. It's very snobby. That's how I look at it, because I can appreciate Scorsese's films. I love what he does. I appreciate a lot of films. They're not all superhero Star Wars films, believe it or not, but some of my favorite films are
He's
from
lying, Nick.
from the classic era. So, anyways, it's one of those things where I just their argument, and I can understand why, is they're nervous about it. Is there's no draw to the theaters for their films anymore, because if you have a choice between seeing Joker or some guy learning how to deal with Tourette's, I mean, it's like they're going to go see Joker. And it doesn't matter if they put a lot of heartfelt and emotion into these films, meaning like their films, not the comic book films. No one's going to see them. They're not making the box office numbers. And I think they're concerned that their views, their inputs, their way of thinking is not going to be directed to the masses, and that everyone's just going to be dumbasses watching guys in capes and tights. It's hard, because the way I look at it is simple. It's like, if you make a good movie, people will want to see it. If you make a good trailer, that's even better, because then you guarantee people will come and see your film. But let's be real here. Like, my sister is a perfect example. She, I can't remember the name of it, but what is it? Cumberbatch, the guy that does the BBC Sherlock.
Doctor Who?
Did this movie. No, he did. No. Anyways, he did a film about a guy dying of cancer, and the whole movie is about him in a wheelchair with his family, pushing him all over the friggin' place, and then he goes into the ocean and drowns himself because he doesn't want to go through chemo and all this other shit. And at the end of the day, yeah, okay, maybe it pulls emotional heartstrings, maybe it's something that's kind of makes you think, but at the end of the day, it also makes you want to slit your wrists. And I'm just saying, like, stuff like that, people don't necessarily, their lives are so difficult already these days. The last thing they want to do is sit for 2 hours when they're out. Maybe that's the only 2 hours they have for that whole week, and they have to go and watch that. And the artsy fartsy community, yes, it's good to have those films, and they should be encouraged and continue. But it's one of those things too, where, like, if you expect the entire world to only accept that kind of stuff, they're the ones that caused the superhero boom. Because up until the superhero movies came out, there was nothing. It really was all that shit. I mean, you had, what was it, Traffic? What was the movie? Like, all the movies that won Best Picture prior to all these things, they were just these random offshoots about, racism and all these things. And, like, yes, we get it, this stuff exists, but that's part of the problem, is like, people want to escape from that. We didn't even get a chance to talk about the other half of this coin because he took so long, but I want to finish up with this one thought too. Yeah, because I want to talk about Robert Downey Jr. trashing on the same people he's encouraged to get a fan base. He's also saying that you shouldn't support that fan base when you're older. Like, we want you to like it now, but when you get older, you can't like it or get over it.
RDJ said that?
What do you think about that?
I think that's bullshit. You like what you like.
Right, but someone who's legitimately in the business, it's like a fucking ice cream truck. I picture Robert Downey Jr., not Robert Downey Jr., sorry, Freddie Prinze Jr., driving a fucking ice cream truck into a neighborhood, ringing his bell, saying, here's ice cream, and the little kids come out, and then he's like, here, kids, have your ice cream. And then, a dad comes up and is like, I was a kid once, can I have ice cream? Sure. And he tastes the ice cream, and it doesn't taste as good because he didn't mix it right, or whatever the case may be. And the dad says, Freddie, this ice cream doesn't taste that good right now. It's weird. Usually your ice cream's pretty good. And he says, go fuck yourself. This ice cream's for kids, not you. Like, what do you say to that?
Well, my kid's not going to buy ice cream from you anymore.
Right. But my point is, that's the take that he kind of took on it.
That's bad business, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought too. All right, so what you disagree with Scorsese, but at the same time you agree.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the old school mentality of, hey, how about this? A little variety wouldn't kill anybody, right? And let's put if we have a bunch of superheroes movies now, guess what? It's saturating the market. It's not going to last. It's not going to last. Just let them have their day in the sun for a little while longer, because I guarantee you that it's going to phase out. It's going to go back to all horror movies. It's going to go back to something else. It's not going to be what it is. So that's my final thought. I don't know what your final thought is.
Put your money where your mouth is, Matt.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
In 10 years, do you think we won't have it? If not, let's put money down. Put money where your mouth is.
I think that the hero genre is going to last at least another 5 to 10 years, after which time people are going to be over it, or they're going to screw it up and it's going to fizzle out.
All right, what do you want to bet? We're going to end this on the bet.
I'm betting your goatee. I'm betting your goatee.
I'm shaving that off anyway.
Well, there you go. All right, so thank you for listening to Entertainment Banter. My name is Matt.
I guess that makes me Joel. And I'm done.